Deputy Joan Burton has 30 seconds to introduce her question.
Thank you. I understand that there is a working group to undertake the transfer of the orchestras, the symphony and the concert orchestra from the direct control of RTE to the National Concert Hall. And I would like to know, in relation to the symphony orchestra, what representation is there on the working group that I understand you have arranged to be established, of employees of the orchestras, musicians working in the orchestras, and I'd like to know how is the move progressing and when is it proposed that the move would actually take place?
Ministers, 2 minutes.
Thank you, Deputy Burton. Following the publication of the report by RTE that it commissioned from independent consultants Helen Bowden and Mediatic on the RTE orchestras, entitled RTE Orchestras Ensuring a Sustainable Future, the Government agreed in principle that the RTE National Symphony Orchestra should come within the remit of the National Concert Hall. And the Government also authorised the initiation of discussions on the implementations of the recommendations of the report. The overall aim of the Government decision in relation to the proposed transfer of the RTE National Symphony Orchestra is to enable the orchestra to be established as a world-class orchestra, which would, with the National Concert Hall, provide a creative and imaginative programme strategy that would greatly enhance the offering of the combined organisation to the public. And the process offers a welcome opportunity now to plan a way forward for both orchestras and ensures that they contribute fully to Ireland's rich cultural heritage. And as you said, an oversight group and a working group have been established with formal terms of reference and with a view to identifying and addressing the relevant issues to be addressed to enable the successful transfer of the National Symphony Orchestra from the remit of RTE to the remit of the National Concert Hall. And the terms of reference of the Oversight Group provide that the group will be chaired by the Department of Culture, Heritage and the Gaeltacht and will be made up of representatives from the Department of Culture, Heritage and the Gaeltacht, Department of Communications, Climate Action and Environment, RTE and the National Concert Hall. And the terms of reference of the working group provide that the membership of the group may vary depending on the nature of the issue being discussed, and that the working group will report to the Oversight Group. And the Oversight Group has already met on a number of occasions, most recently on the 8th of January, and has agreed on the importance of a proper communication process between the Oversight and Working Group and representatives, members and support staff of the National Symphony Orchestra to ensure that the orchestra is informed on a timely basis about all aspects of the proposed transfer of the National Symphony Orchestra and can input into the process. I'll finish up now. In this regard, it is intended that a meeting will be arranged shortly between the working group and union representatives of the National Symphony Orchestra to update them on developments to date.
Reply. What I actually asked you, and you failed to comment, is whether or not any of the working musicians in the orchestras and other people working in the orchestras are actually on both of these groups, in particular in relation to the working group, but also in relation to the oversight group. Because you were waxing very lyrical on the previous set of questions there from your own backbenchers. And to be honest, the orchestras are a great national treasure, cultural treasure for Ireland, where musicians in the orchestras are actually paid at living wage and union wage rates. Unlike our earlier discussion this morning about many people in the field of the arts working on effectively very low wages, not even at minimum wage rates, and unable to access housing or rents out of the meagre payments that are being made. So the orchestras are very important in terms of the calibre of what they do from an artistic level, but also the fact that this is regular, secure employment paid at a good rate. But are any of these musicians on either of these groups? That's my question. Minister to respond.
I appreciate your question. I'll take it as a compliment that I've been waxing lyrical to the backbenchers. and I hope that I will do the same for you, Deputy. The oversight group may task, as I said in my primary response, working groups to report back on specific issues as the need arises. And these groups may include members of the oversight group together with other individuals as appropriate. And working groups can be tasked to carry out the following functions: to design and make recommendations on the appropriate process to transfer the National Symphony Orchestra from RTE to the National Concert Hall, identifying the staff to transfer in accordance with the rules governing the transfer of undertakings, to formally engage and consult with the employees, which you mentioned, of the National Symphony Orchestra, to finalise the costs involved in the transfer, having regard to the recommendations of the report, to identify any existing central corporate supports provided by RTE and not subject to transfer, and the cost of those supports. But the membership of the group may vary, as I said earlier, depending on the nature of the issue being discussed, and all working groups will report to the oversight group. And I'm satisfied that all parties are represented, and all stakeholders and all relevant people that should be engaged in this process are being engaged in this process.
Can you tell us, because that's what the written question says in front of you, the representation of musicians and employees of each of the orchestras on the working group and on the oversight group? There's a very simple answer: yes, there are working musicians on the working group from the orchestras, or no, there are no representatives of the musicians and artists in the orchestras. If the second is the correct answer, and I appreciate you said you can vary it, would you set out to vary that as soon as possible and put representatives of the artists and musicians on the groups as soon as possible? It's their artistry that's made the orchestras what they are. And secondly, can you actually identify and perhaps give me the names of the people who are actually on the two working groups, so we can find out who they are and whether musicians are actually represented, and what is a very important undertaking for the future of orchestral music in Ireland?
I can only answer the question in so many ways, Deputy. What I've said to you is that the oversight group may task working groups to report back on specific issues as the need arises, and that the makeup of the actual working group will depend on the issue that is being discussed. So it's impossible to say at any one given point who is actually sitting on a particular working group. And if you wish for further information, I can give it to you. But I know that the oversight group is meeting on the 5th of February next. They have discussed many issues: funding arrangements, communication, engagement with stakeholders, legal issues, a shared vision of the future, and much progress has been made so far in terms of the reference of both the oversight and the composition of the working groups and how they're going to work. But ultimately, it's up to the oversight group, which is represented by all stakeholders, to determine the actual makeup of each individual working group.